We muted you. All right, come to attention. Respect. Okay, so tonight, what I'm trying to do is cover a lot of things. First of all, I want to thank everybody for participating, and we have a group of people that have not been to earlier classes. So let me say thanks for coming. One of our black belts from Tennessee, Pat Oler, and his daughter Stephanie are watching, and one of our black belts, she just graduated, right?
She's going to in May.
So one of our students that's graduating with her bachelor's degree in May, Allie, is participating tonight, so we're glad to see that. A lot of the beginners, most of the advanced students, and people keep coming in. Asa's in class and his little brother tonight. And another one of our black belts from Greensboro, Evan Cornegie, him and his brother Ryan are both black belts in the program, and he's observing as well. There may be some more people coming in. Craig from Cleveland participated in class the other day. Hamilton Perkins from Burlington might be in. One of Michelle's students, Barb, brown belt from the Moxville program, no, Clemens program rather, is in class also. So thanks for everybody for coming. So on the agenda tonight, I'm going to go over some of the fundamentals about punching, the corkscrew punch and the vertical punch from the Ishin-Ryu katas. And we're going to work a little bit on the how kata and the movements in the kata are to help you generate force. So we talked about this in other classes. There's really several reasons why we do kata. One is to obviously learn technique. One is to develop cadence and sets that we can use in like self-defense and in real fighting situations. And then one reason that a lot of people miss is that the construction and the dynamics of the movements in the kata are generating more. Because it goes on exercise. The kata that we're going to do tonight is a straight line kata, and I come to the conclusion that in this kind of a context, forms for us to practice. And we've been very successful here with these last couple days. A couple of my students posted their new kata, and it looks excellent, like if they've been practicing it for quite a while. And I've seen a couple of the other students that haven't posted it, but I've seen them do it, and everybody's picking it up. So unlike the normal eye patterns where we have to make 260-degree turns or 270-degree turns and that type of thing, it's really hard to follow that on video. So I've decided that we're going to work on these straight line videos a little bit. All right, so let's go on to punching. So first of all, one of the things that I see when I'm watching my students and when we go to competitions and we see other people on a punch, that sometimes it's not definitive that they're hitting with their front two knuckles. And if you're not hitting with your front two knuckles, you're not transferring the power into your knuckles, so it's not a fluid transfer of power. So if I held my hand to the side, my forefinger knuckle is higher than my pinky knuckle, just naturally. If I make a fist like that and then bring that fist up, that's the way it's going to be, because my front two knuckles are lower, in this case, than my third and fourth knuckle. That's a natural thing with your hand like this. Observe that if I had my wrist bent when I punched, that natural would be like holding my hand like that, and that's not the case. So here, making a fist, making sure that your front two knuckles, and you can see my wrist is flat. I tell the kids, if you put a ruler across here, If there's a gap, then your wrist is bent. We want that to be flat and straight. Front two knuckles. I invited one of my peers that I tested for black belt with. I'm not sure he's going to show up tonight, but him and I both competed in breaking quite a bit, and I was going to get him into the conversation of what would happen if you didn't hit with those front two knuckles. All right. Now, when we do a vertical punch, like in Seisan in Ishin Ryu, you do a vertical punch this way, your wrist is still straight. Actually, it's this punch turned this way. Okay, this punch, my thumb's in a slightly different position because I'm reinforcing my wrist. But the punch from the corkscrew punch turned into a vertical punch does not change that. Now, what I see sometimes when people are doing Seisan is they punch like this. Even senior Ishin Ryu people doing these katas on YouTube and that, they're punching and they're hitting with their second and third knuckle, if not their bottom knuckle. So this is a problem. This is a process of how the punch then ends up. So in Seisan, when you do the punch, you extend the punch. If this was a corkscrew punch, you would be able to extend it and throw it all the way out there. But because your arm is turned sideways, when you extend this punch hard and you extend it hard, you don't have to pull it back. It springs back a little bit on its own. So what I see people doing is artificially pulling it back, or having their wrist bent and then pulling it back. So I have this situation in my class all the time, and I see it in other classes. So the key to this is thinking about your front two knuckles. One thing to do, that's why I had this board, one thing to do is to wrap it against the board so that you see if you're hitting with your front two knuckles. So the next thing I want to move on to is using the mechanics of the kata to increase your practice over and over again. And of course, kata practice means that you memorize a kata and you do it 1,000 times. So as you're practicing the kata, you go through a lot of different changes and transitions as you're doing the kata. In the beginning, you're memorizing it. Eventually, you're performing it. And in the meantime, from doing the kata over and over again, you explore and investigate the mechanics that you're in as you're doing the form. What I always try to inspire my students to investigate these forms as they're practicing them, feel the movements and why exactly that these movements were put into the kata. One of the reasons is to help you increase power in the movements over a period of time. All right, so taking a couple exercises, let's work on that a little bit. So one, we're going to start with the second move of solid stance one. So in solid stance one, you're in a back stance. Some traditional back stances are heel to heel. In solid stance one, your stance is wider. I know you can't see my feet, and I don't want to keep changing the screen, so I'm going to explain it to you more than show you that. But you can see there's some space between my legs. So in a, quote, traditional stance, a lot of back stances are done heel to heel, and they move their front foot to get to this position. In solid stance one, we're already in that position. So I'm going to turn sideways into a back stance this way. Okay. So the idea of this form is to practice generating the force from your legs through your hip into the punch. So starting slow, turning your hip, starting to straighten your back leg, and then extending into the punch. I'm seeing I'm getting a glare in that window. I'm going to try it again from here. We have another guest came in. Ben Morrison from Mr. McSwain's class was also prompted in. And Ben, if you want to turn your video on, you can, and then mute your microphone for me. All right. We're working on generating this force from the back leg, pushing off the back leg, turning your hip, and driving through your front two knuckles. So early in class, I was emphasizing the front two knuckles. So in order to do this move correctly, you have to have your front two knuckles ready to hit with that punch, because you have to drive your power through your front two knuckles. If your wrist is bent, then your power is going here and up. So you're not going to get your full power into that punch. And so the form was created to help practice that power. There's practical applications to the move, for sure. There's sets in that move. You're learning to do moves, two movements in a row, the block punch you're learning to do. But also it's to, over time, repeatedly increase your power and focus on that movement. So in our school, we look at 3 different principles for a good technique, or a proper focus technique. 1 is good technique, doing it correctly, stances correct, hands correct, and so on. 2 is breathing with the movement. If you hold your breath, you're shortening up the movement. And 3, concentrating on your target. So in my class, I use the word concentrate and contemplate to define this. We're concentrating on the block, or we're concentrating on the strike, or what we're striking. We're not contemplating on how to do the movement. So as you're executing this punch, for example, you're not contemplating on how I do that punch. You're concentrating on the target that you're doing the punch. Concentrating on how you do the punch is part of initial practice. You have to concentrate on what you're doing with the movement. Again, using this back stance, let's work on this one. So you're going to shift your hips straight leg and draw your punch. So let's do it from this upper block position. Ready, shift, punch. Again, shift, punch. Again, shift, punch. Good work. All right, I want to see how everybody's doing that. So those of you that are practicing, let's see you do that a few times so I can see it. So I didn't mention Sebastian McConnell's in class. He's one of the black belts from in the Recreation Center. Asa, are you practicing the shift punch? Up in practice, boys, and I'm going to give you something else to practice here in a second. Elizabeth, there's some mics that are still on.
I'll turn it off. Turn it off.
What happens when the mics are still on, it takes over the main screen. Thank you, Ben. Okay. Let's turn around and do it on the other side now. So now in a right back stance. Again, remember that this stance is wider than normal. Some of the katas, you're in the back stance, your heels are on line. In this stance, you're wide enough apart so that when you shift into a front stance, your feet are wide enough apart that your front stance isn't a straight line. Maybe at this point, tradition to me, and everybody has a different view of this, tradition means to me, a third of our class is on kata, a third of our class is on self-defense, and a third of our class is on sparring. The tradition of the school is the way we do our katas. Everybody does their katas a little bit different, even katas from the same style, because it's like telephone at school. By the time it gets transferred from one person to another, slight changes are made in the kata. So we have a
Master Bill, you're frozen.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's good, I think. Yeah, it's good.
All right, so we're here, and then shift your hip, shift your back leg, and drive into that front. So, to give you an example of what we don't want to do, Joseph, you have to figure out how to shut that microphone off.
Did he just come in?
Thank you. One time I went to Chicago to visit my parents at Christmas, and a Greenbelt student taught the last class I had already left. And she was teaching this form. And so what she did was she had the students step out and then turn and punch. So she had the turn of the hips. What she missed was the shift of the leg. So what you turn and shifted back onto your back leg and then shifting forward and turning your hips at the same time into the punch. I was trying to do it with you. So, punch. Again, remember always to keep your wrist straight so that your wrist is flat. And like I said, if you had a ruler sitting on your hand, there would be no bend. Wrist straight, front two knuckles. So from a back stance with your knee bent over your back foot so that you can't see your toes, to shifting that leg, that weight into your front leg, turning your hips, and nailing the punch with your front two knuckles. Now, before you practice that on your own a little bit, this is a reverse punch from sparring. So in sparring, you're here and you throw a reverse punch with your hips behind it. Unlike kata, you don't lock it out there. And the reason you don't lock it out there is because when you're sparring, you're not working on trying to get your most powerful punch. You're working on a sporting aspect of trying to score a point. So leaving your arm out there would leave you open to getting counter kicked. So that's why we don't do that in sparring. But because we practice it 1,000 times, or 10,000 times doing this kata over and over again 1,000 times, when you execute a sparring reverse punch, it has all the elements of this fundamental drive. When I throw the reverse punch, my back leg is still shifting, I'm turning my hips, and I'm driving through my front two knuckles. I'm just not leaving it out there. Okay, so back to this side. Make sure your back knee is bent. Shift, drive through your front two knuckles. And you want to feel that power come from your back leg, through your hip, down your arm, into your knuckles. And part of feeling that is to breathe with the movement. Okay, so everybody practice that a few times. So while everybody's practicing, this is our biggest class so far. Whoops. I was giving the idea of the people in the class. We have 2 pages. There is some overlap, so I don't know exactly. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's overlap, so I'm getting confused every time I try to count. So we have 2 pages of people, so that looks good. We told his mom was trying to figure it out for us. So usually when I start going over the subject again, I was telling some of my senior black belts that I talked to after class, the reason that I start going over something again is because some of the kids just stop and start looking at the TV screen instead of continuing to practice. That prompts me into knowing, well, it's time to do the next subject. Everybody's standing still. All right. Before I go on, Mr. Perkins had a class last night. I hope some of you got to see it. I invited several people to go see it, and it was on basics, and he did about a 20-minute class. It was really interesting. He's going to continue to do that as well, so I'll keep letting everybody know when those classes are going to be. All right. We worked on a couple other sets to work on generating power, and I want to stay on the subject because it's something I want people practicing and doing it for. So in round 2, the sets, we did a hockey check, and now I'm on a straight line. Let me back up a little bit. So I'm on a straight line here. So the next move is we do a groin grab and we move from left leg to top leg, which gives us but I've done this form 10,000 times. The more times I do this form, the more I feel this counter turn. And then from that counter turn, I snap my hip into the punch. So that is an intended movement in the kata. From practice, I can see that whoever put this kata together wanted the students to work on that mechanics. So we're here, you step back, you counter turn your hip, and then you can drive off of that hip into the punch. And notice my wrist is straight. I'm hitting with my front 2 knuckles. Sometimes I punch 3/4 instead of absolute vertical, and that's from breaking experience. I used to punch cinder blocks in competition, so you can't hit them wrong. You got to hit them with your front 2 knuckles. I found that turning my fist a little bit rather than straight vertical, I never hit my 3rd and 4th knuckle. So again, from here, there's several beginners in class, so most of you know this form. I'm going to get to this position. The beginners, you need to start here. With your feet in a straight line, this hand here. You're going to step back with your left. Your left hand comes underneath like you're grabbing somebody's belt, or in the kata, grabbing them between the legs. And as you do that, this hand comes back to your hip and it counter turns your hip away from the direction you're going to punch. Then you twist and drive through those front 2 knuckles. So that's what we want to practice. From here, stepping back, grabbing, counter turning your hip, and then driving into the punch. Once again. Okay, let's see how everybody's got that. Wow, it's great to see so many people practicing karate. This is so cool. So again, a lot of our regular black belts are here. Warner and Angie, Sebastian, Lenny, David Hankins, and then Allie. And then we have some guests, some black belts from the past, Evan
You forgot
Cornegy.
me.
Sorry, Marjorie, I was trying to get to everybody, but Kelly was prompting me. And Pat Oler from Tennessee is visiting us. I hope I didn't forget any of the black belts. A lot of the active brown belts are in class. That's a good thing to see. And there's a host of beginners. Joseph Hefner is here, and Madeline, and of course, our host's daughter, Matilda. All right. So let me go on to the next one. So the other one that I picked out to work on this was movements that are in Basai and Kusan-ku. They're a little bit different, done a little bit different, but the mechanics of these sets are the same. So I'm going to start with Basai. And then you twist through your stance. So in this case, this is my right. I have both feet pointed to the right. You shift through your stance, drive through your front knuckles, and now my feet are into the left. Block, and then you shift through it again. So as I said, Basai is one of the most practiced katas in all of karate and taekwondo. Almost every school of karate and taekwondo does a version of Basai. So we see all kinds of different versions of this. In some versions, I see people just doing that. I was taught this big shift, which makes sense to me because this is a drill on how to generate more force. So we're here, and again, like we did in solid stance 1, we're using our legs to start, and then our hip shift, and then driving into these front two knuckles. You block, and then shift, and drive into those front two knuckles. So whether or not you get the block exactly right, that's not the issue. Let's try to work on the shift of the punch. So we're here, you shift, block, shift. And then in Kusan-ku, near the beginning of the kata, you're here and you do a distraction and shift and punch. And then do a distraction and shift and punch. Raina will let you know later on I made a mistake there. So we're here, you do the shift and the punch is at an angle, not like Basai, not straight ahead, it's here. And then the distraction and shift. So you can see the mechanics of turning your hip and driving behind the punch, they're the same. We can come up with bunkai, and people do, and there's all kinds of different practical bunkai or practical use of that move in the kata. But behind that is not some exotic hidden technique. It's a mechanical drill of how to generate more force through constant repetition of the form. And that's my big theme tonight. All right, so let's work on that shift for a minute. And then I have one more that we're going to practice, and then we're going to work on our kata.
Master Bill, do you mind doing that one more time?
Okay. The second one.
Yeah, because I'm not understanding how you're turning around completely. Can you do it on your feet? On your legs, how you're turning?
I really don't want to move the screen because I think that's what's interfering with the Wi-Fi. I'll try to get as far back as I can, but I'm describing it for you. My feet are pointing this way. And then when I shift, my feet are pointed all the way around the other way. So I'm shifting my feet all the way around. So in Basai, it's this way, and you punch towards the screen. And in Kusan-ku, you do a lift and drop your toes as a distraction. So the person's punching here, and then you're punching to the bottom. Then you do that distraction on that side and shift through. And I picked that set from those two katas because it's identical. It's not identical in bunkai, in application. It's identical in mechanics. Did that help Ishwa?
Yeah, that was really good. Thank you.
I love it. Must say that really good. I really like this format.
You're frozen.
This gives me a chance to see what everybody's doing. The waters are staying still right now, for example. Matilda, I thought you were going to say something. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you were frozen, that's all.
Okay. Uh-oh, I got the walkers moving. Yeah. So again, the beginners, Madeline and Matilda, Joseph, are really doing good. Okay. Now, in tonight's kata, and the kata that we've been working on, there's a couple movements, and Craig Fredericks from Cleveland, who's not here tonight, but he asked me about the stance that we're in when we do a particular movement. So when we're in the movement here, and we come in and we do this move. So again, I know you can't see my legs, but they're like my stance when I'm doing a block in Shinto. So I did not know what that stance was called. He referred to it as an S stance, so we're going to go with S stance. I'm going to take the chance of moving the screen because I want you to see my feet. So in Shinto, you bring one foot up behind the other one, like this. At one point in Shinto, you bring your foot around behind it, like that, and your knees are almost locked together. My back knee is in my front. My back knee is in the pit of my front kneecap. So it's like that. Okay, so this kata is done two different ways. And the reason I'm bringing it up at this point is because it's back to what I'm working on, how to generate force from practicing through the movement. So in one of the moves of the kata, this fist is doing like an outside forearm block, which the practical application could be a strike to the kidneys. And you're hitting your hand like this. So again, we could come up with some bankai of why this hand is like this. But a lot of times in the katas, it seems that that hand is there to give you resistance on contact. That's the case sometimes with elbows. It's not so much grabbing somebody and pulling them into the elbow, which I think sometimes it's misunderstood, but to give you a surface to strike against. And this is the case here. Okay? And notice my hand now is on the other side. So there's two different ways that we're moving into that power. One of them, I have to orientate myself. One of them is a lateral movement. We're moving this way. And we bring that back foot up, and the force is from coming forward, from lateral moving, and then your back hip turns into it. So that's a lot like a reverse punch. Since Mr. Oler's here from Tennessee, when he was trying to help me struggle in golf, he kept telling me, first of all, let me say he was a collegiate golfer. So he kept telling me, it's easy, Bill, it's a reverse punch. That finally clicked, and I started hitting the ball back. So this is a reverse punch. It's turning your hip behind that movement. A second version of that, you step across, turn, and then bring it back. But you move forward so that it counter turns your hip, and then you're turning back. That's like we were practicing in Wansu, that counter turn. So, not really advanced moves in this kata, except for those moves. What those moves do is it takes your legs out of the movement. So you have to try to generate that force just with your lateral move forward or with that counter turn, because you don't have your back leg to drive power into that movement. So the advanced part of these katas may be that very thing. So again, I know you can't see my legs. That's one of the drawbacks here. I have a post right here. So if I move this camera back, that post is going to start blocking the view anyway. So it's not like I can get the camera further back, and I can't go any further back than this. All right. So the lateral movement coming forward is moving your hips laterally this way, sideways, and then at the end, turning your hip. All right, so you're here, laterally moving sideways, turning your hip. Laterally moving, turning your hip. Okay, and then the other version of this, I'm actually stepping across like we step in front of round kick. I'm stepping across, it turns my hip the other way, and then I'm bringing this back. Bringing it back. So when I do step across, I get into that S stance. and then I turn my hip back into that strike. All right, take a minute and practice that. It says David DC. I don't know who that would be.
It's Clark, Bill.
Oh, wow. Hey, David.
How you doing?
How you doing?
This looks good, man.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce you. I need you to shut your mic off, though. Well, unless you're going to sit there silently, because it'll take over the screen. You know that, right?
Yeah, I'll mute it.
Okay. So let me tell everybody that I couldn't figure out who just came in. David Clark, a friend of mine, one of our brown belts from years ago, is a professor in New Orleans, Louisiana. And actually, I invited him to several of these classes, and he contacted me today, and he said, I'm teaching a class on how to use Zoom, ironically. And so he must have finished his class, so he came to observe. So welcome to the class, David.
Thank you, Bill. Hello, everyone.
Bill, it seems like you're
Looking good.
Okay, there we go.
I'm getting people to stop again, so we must be tired of doing that move. Okay. I'm going to do our new kata for you, and then we'll stop and talk about a couple things, and I'll see if I can get All right. So before we go on any further, and we're going to practice that, that was in regular order. I'm going to do it in reverse for everybody for the screen. I wanted to make an announcement. So we're going to have this ongoing class. Hopefully Elizabeth is going to be able to host us, and we're not giving her too much trouble. And we can do this on Tuesday and Thursday. Mr. Perkins, the sensei from Burlington, and Mr. Hinton, the sensei from Knoxville, are also doing classes. And so, like I said, Mr. Perkins had a class last night. So I asked some of my senior students, and there's a couple of them that are here in class that don't know about this, Marjorie and Angie. But I'm asking my senior students to set up a class. So Mr. Perkins did a 20-minute class on basics, And I'm asking the senior students, I talked to Mr. Phelps, Mr. Hankins, and Mr. Kaplan so far about setting up a 20-minute class. And before they do this, we're going to discuss things to make sure that they're covering different themes. And they're going to publish this class on our group page. So it won't be a Zoom class. What they're going to do is video a 20-minute class, and then they'll put it up like on, it's going to be like Facebook Live. Facebook Live is doing the same thing live. What they're going to do is record it and post it. I did this earlier with versions of Tosan. So that's some upcoming things. I'm really excited about that. We're getting instructors from the different classes to help participate. And we'll post those periodically. So we'll have like postings on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, maybe on Saturday, depending on how many of the instructors I can get involved in doing it. And then hopefully we'll be able to continue to have the Zoom class on Tuesday and Thursday. So I'm really excited about that. I got emails from the Recreation Center directors, and the centers are for sure closed until the end of April. I cannot see them opening the recreation centers before they open the schools. So I think that it's really going to be tied together. So I cannot see, they're talking they're not opening the schools until May 15th for sure. So I can't see them opening the recreation centers, because if they did, the kids from school that wouldn't be in school would go to the recreation centers, and then we would have the same situation where people were gathering. So it does not seem feasible to me. So in the short term, this is our opportunity, is to do the Facebook Live classes that the advanced black belt instructors are going to do, and the Zoom class, which I plan on continuing to do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'm really excited about that. I'm getting a thumbs up from Elizabeth. So that means that our host is not too strained with us, and that's a good thing. And I've already gotten some feedback from Mr. Kaplan and Mr. Hankins and Mr. Phelps on their different ideas. And they also suggested some things for Marjorie and Angie without them knowing it. So we have some ideas already in the can, and we're going to start to work on that, and then we'll put them together. And everybody should stay in touch with my Facebook group page, because that's where I'll make the announcements. Also, my main webpage is greenvillekarate.weebly.com. On that page, list of all the black belts. There's lots of pictures. There's some videos of the most recent tests. And where it says contact and links, if you go to that, click on that Weebly page, it has a link to the Facebook group page, which has myself and my instructor, Mr. Kwan, as the banner. And on that page, there's a whole library of videos. There's videos of all of the katas that we do in the school. There's videos of competitions. There's videos of my students doing katas. There's videos of A-rated karate competitors nationwide. There's videos of some of the founders of the karate system. It's a pretty comprehensive library. Every time I get something new, I put it in there. There's also a link on the Weebly contacts to the YouTube page. So when I was in grad school, I had set up a YouTube page, and so it's under Wiliam Osterholt. One way to do it would be to go to YouTube and just type in Wiliam Osterholt. And on that page, there's also a library of katas. So why YouTube is because most people can pull YouTube up on their TV. And if you can pull YouTube up on your TV, you would be able to see the images on a full screen TV, which makes it a little bit easier to follow. All right, so those are some exciting things that are coming up. We're dedicated to trying to provide our karate service to our students. And I'm excited about the kind of participation that we're getting from the students. So that's the next step, is to try to help out as much as we can. And of course, it's not the same thing ever as being in class, but we all live and learn, and we deal with situations, and we become stronger because of it. And so when we're in these kind of situations where we have to adapt to what we're doing to different circumstances, that's good for us as karate students. All right, I'm going to run over a little bit, if that's okay? Okay. So I had some people that demonstrated the new kata and posted it. And so I'm going to ask them to do their kata. So Madhan, I'm putting you on the spot. How about unmuting your microphone, and then we'll try to pin you.
Yes, sir.
Very good. So we're going to let Madhan go first, and then his daughter is going to, Samhita is going to show him how to do it afterwards. Thank you very much. Go ahead. Great work, Madhan.
Thank you, sir.
Let Samhita do it now. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. What time is it?
I have a question, sir.
Sure.
So in the first move, when we do this, this is like a one-two kick, or it's a straight kick, side kick?
It's a straight side kick. It's to the knee, but the knee are a little bit higher than the knee. Okay.
Is that correct?
I'm going to do the form in reverse again, so everybody can follow along. And the name of this form is Puon, P-O-E-N. So I looked, because I knew before I told you the name, if you look this form up, like everything else, you're going to be able to find it on the internet. So I looked at the forms that are on the internet, and there's some variance in how the forms are done. Like I said before, it's like telephone. Once it goes around the dojo a couple times, it ends up different. So, but there's some stylized differences. This is a Taekwondo form, and some of the versions of this are very power-orientated and over-exaggerated steps, and they're doing one movement at a time. And so some of those forms are very bouncy looking. And then there's other ones that are not. They're not bouncy like that. So there's some variance on it. So again, tradition is the way that we do it, and the way that we do it is the way that I was taught to do the form. So even though there's differences, you know, what we do is a tradition of the way that it's been passed down to us. The one thing that is common is what Madhan just asked me about that kick. Because they try to keep their body pretty straight up, even every system of Taekwondo that I saw do this form, and I looked at about 12 different ones, they're all trying to keep their body pretty upright. So instead of like leaning to get the kick higher, they're kicking to a height, like I said, from like the calf to the knee. And that's pretty common in all of these straight line forms. They're leg attacks to the legs, hand attacks to the upper body. So that's pretty common. Samhita throws that kick a little bit higher. So where Samhita threw it, which was about between her hip and her belt high, that's fine. Some of the kids, like Madison's in class, and Matilda, and Madeline, and Samhita, and Raina, and Ishwa all have really good looking kicks. So doing that kick a little bit higher to show off their form on the kick, I'm okay with that. We don't want to try for, you know, like a head high kick because it'll cause you to lean. But if you can do the kick and keep your body up straight and do it at that height, it'd be fine. All right. We're actually over time, but I'm going to go a little bit more because I want to do this form a couple times. Allie's the first time Allie's in class, and Barb's here from Clemens, so I want to go over it. Let me say too that I posted this video from our Tuesday class on our group site. I'm sorry, not on the group site. It's on the Greensboro Karate page, Facebook page, which has the libraries of videos, and that's where I posted it. All right, so I'm going to do it a couple times backwards, which means that when I move to the left, you move to the right. Try to follow along with me. Barb and Allie and Asa, students, if I miss somebody, I have to if you have not been in these classes and you need to go to the screen for you have my sign on the banner, and along the side it says videos, and there's a whole library of videos, and there's 17 playlists of videos, and the newest video is the video from Tuesday's class. Okay. So again, I'm doing this in reverse. So I'm going to move to my right. You move to your left on that block. All right, that's the first half. I know how hard that is to follow the first time, and I'm concerned about the students that are trying to do this the first time and our guests. So I'm going to do the first half. The second half for Allie and Barb, Asa, Evan, the second half of this form is the same thing in reverse. So if you practice this first half and get the first half, and then you do everything else on the second half, starting on the other side. So starting on this side, kicking this way. And again. All right, as far as cadence on a couple of these moves. So this is sort of like a slow block, the very beginning, and then a quick thrust up and the side kick. Hard chop, this is slow bringing it back to the front. Punch, block, block, block. Punch, punch. This is sort of slow. And then this is like you're stopping something. Slow coming up to here. Set. Strike. So I think the two main things was this comes around slow. You do the punch, and then you do the sequence of blocking. 1, 2, 3. And then the punches, 1, 2. All right, let me do it again from the beginning. Again, I'm doing it opposite, so I'm going to my right, you go to your left. I'm going to do it one more time real slow. I'm warmed up now, so going real slow is hard. Okay. So let me thank everybody for coming. We're going to have to end class here because I ran over 10 minutes already. But it's great to see Allie in class and Sebastian. Way to go. I don't know if Barb is still here. We got Asa and there he is. Asa's little brother is behind him. Good to see you in class. Madison and Matilda and Madeline. It's great to see you guys in class, Ishwa and Reina, and even Sanjay came with them. So we're glad to have everybody in class. And of course, all the senior students, the Walker family. I hope I'm not missing anybody. Our guests, David Clark from New Orleans. Did I say that right? And one of our black belts from years ago, Evan Cornegie. Good to have you come and watch. Hello, Evan.
Hi, Evan.
He popped up.
Daddy,
Kelly wants to say hi.
where are you? Hi, honey. I love you.
I'm hoping I'm not missing everybody, but I really appreciate everybody coming to the class. Of course, Madhan and Samhita, and you guys did a great job on posting those videos. And once you're comfortable doing this form, post it on the group site. And Stephanie, thanks for dragging Pat over to watch. Pat, did you have a good time? Give me a thumbs up or something.
Happy Easter and happy High Holy Week.
The other thing that I have not posted because I didn't want to interfere with these postings on the scheduled class, the Legends of Carolina, which are, I'm humbled because they're honoring me this year and inducting me into their Legends. It was supposed to be July 25th. And the person that actually runs the Legends and also has a tournament, and his tournament was supposed to be May 22nd. Because of the virus, he's moved things into the fall, or actually late summer. So August 14th and 15th is going to be the Columbia Open and the Legends ceremony. So I'm letting everybody know that. I'd like to have black belts come to this event if they could. I'm not sure of the scheduling yet. Mr. Penn is going through some things right now in Columbia because they're putting different restrictions that we've already had here and they already have in New Orleans. Restriction in Columbia they haven't had in take care of business.
So you're
I didn't want to come today on it, but Mr. Phelps and I had this discussion about exactly what the lens is going to be.
Bill, you're frozen.
You're breaking up.
Am I breaking up, or can you hear me? Okay. So I'm not sure of the scheduling on when they're going to do elections. They could do it on Friday night. After the tournament. Or they could do it after the tournament. All right, we have to I don't know why when I try to talk it becomes unstable. But again, thank everybody. Thank you for coming and participating. This is going to be an ongoing thing, and there'll be other classes posted on the site that the instructors will work on. All right, so unmute your microphones so that Mr. Clark in Louisiana and Mr. Oler in Tennessee can hear your response to this. All right, come to attention. Why do we follow the rules?
The right thing to do.
The right thing to do.
Very good. Respect. Who's number one?
I am.
All right.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you,
Have a
Bill.
good night. We'll see you.
Good night.
Hey.
You.